Hi friends, and welcome to my channel English Fluency Lab, where I help you improve your English language skills. Friends, in this video, I'm going to talk to you about the difference between the two words worse and worst. Now, you might be wondering that why do I have the images of Bollywood movies in my thumbnail? Well, you'll find out soon because I plan to explain the difference between these two words with the help of Bollywood movies. So let's get started right away. So friends, worse and worst are often confused in English. I have seen many English language learners confuse these two words. The first thing which you need to remember is, although the pronunciation may be a bit similar, but these two words cannot be used interchangeably. There is a difference and we will learn further ahead in the video. Worse and worst are comparative and superlative forms of the word bad. Now, what is comparative and superlative? That is a topic for another day, which I will cover in some other video. But as of now, you need to remember that worse and worst are comparative and superlative forms of the word bad. Now let us understand very clearly how these three words are used. So the first one, let's talk about the movie Kalank. I believe this movie did not do very well, although I haven't seen it. You have a simple statement, Kalank was a bad movie, which means that the person did not like this movie, right? That's a simple statement, Kalank was a bad movie. The second one, Thugs of Hindustan was worse than Kalank. Now you are comparing Thugs of Hindustan to Kalank. Right? So when you use the word worse, you are comparing it to some other thing, right? That could be one or two, mostly it is one, but when you use the word worse, you are comparing it to one other thing. In the third example, Samrat Prithviraj is the worst movie ever. Now this person is comparing all the movies which he has seen in his life till now to Samrat Prithviraj. He's not comparing it to the other two. He's comparing it to all the movies which he's seen in his lifetime. And he thinks that Samrat Prithviraj is the worst movie he has ever seen. So let me repeat. Worse, when you use the word worse, you are comparing it to one or two other things. When you are using the word worst, you are comparing it to many things. But let's go ahead and understand this in detail. Now, when you use the word worse, it is a comparative form of bad. I already said that earlier. It is used to compare two things or situations, indicating that one is of a lower quality or more unfavorable than the other. So as I said, you are comparing two things out here. When you use the word worse, you are comparing two things out here. And you are indicating that one is of a lower quality. As in the case of the movie Kalank and Thugs of Hindustan. We said that Thugs of Hindustan, we are comparing it to Kalank, that one other thing. Let's take an example. The weather today is worse than yesterday. So today is being compared to yesterday. Two comparisons. Another one. Shruti's new phone is worse than her last one. Right? So two comparisons are being made. Her new phone and her last phone. Right? So that is why you're using the word worse. My allergy is getting worse. I think I need to see a doctor. Right? So allergy in the last few days to the allergy now. Okay? So comparison is being made between two situations. And that's why the word worse. So let me repeat, friends, you use the word worse, it is a comparative form of bad, and it is used to compare two things or situations, the earlier one and the present one, and that's when you use the word worse. Let's move forward. Worst is the superlative form of bad. It is used to describe the poorest quality or the most unfavorable thing or situation among a group. That is a thing you need to remember, that this is being compared to things in a group, right? While worse was being used only for two, this is being used for a group. Example, this is the worst concert I've ever attended, which means that he's attended many concerts earlier to this, maybe 15, maybe 20, and this is the worst concert he's ever seen. The worst part of the new movie was the acting, right? Now there is a movie out here and there are many other things which were bad, but of them, the worst part of the movie was the acting. This is the worst Spanish restaurant in town. Now maybe there are 20, maybe there are 15 Spanish restaurants in town, and this is the worst of them, worst of the group, right? So I hope the meaning of the word, we have another example out here. May is the worst month for traveling due to holiday crowds, right? You have 12 other months, but May is the worst month for traveling due to holiday crowds. So I hope you are clear with the meaning of the word worst and worse. But let's understand and make a comparison out here between worse and worst, right? Paneer and cheese pizza is worse than pepperoni pizza, right? That's where you're using the word worse. You're comparing paneer and cheese pizza and you're saying that it is worse than pepperoni pizza. There are two comparisons out here. The worst pizza I've ever tasted had a boiled egg on top. right? He's eaten many pizzas in life, but the worst one was where it had a boiled egg on top. It is being compared to a group to all the pizzas he's had till now. My cough is getting worse. It is being compared to cough in the earlier days to the cough today, right? This is the worst cough I've ever had. Okay, he's had a cough many times in life, but this one is the worst, right? You don't use the word like baddest, or you don't say this is the baddest cough I've ever had. No, you say the worst cough I've ever had. The road conditions are worse in this area, right? So you're comparing this area to some other area, right? These are the worst road conditions in the entire state. You're comparing the road conditions in the entire state. That means in a group, right? So this is the comparison between worse and worst. I hope now it is clear when to use worse and when to use worst. Let us now understand the structure of these two words, right? Let's understand the structure of worse. The structure of worse is, as I told you, it's comparative. The structure is subject plus verb plus the word worse plus the word than, and then you talk about the comparative reference point, right? Subject, verb, worse than, and comparative reference point. Example, this movie is worse than the one which we watched yesterday. Movie is the subject, right? Is the verb. Worse, you're using the word out here. Than, you're using the word out here. And you're comparing the comparative reference point. The movie, the one which we watched yesterday, is the comparative reference point, right? So this is the structure of the word worse. There is an implied comparison also, in which the structure is subject plus verb plus worse. Than is missing out here, right? Implied comparative reference point. My aunt's condition is getting worse, right? So this is the implied comparison. Another example, the traffic seems worse today, right? So you're comparing it perhaps to yesterday, and the traffic seems worse today, right? So there is an implied comparison, right? You don't have to use the word than because it is implied. So that is the structure of the word worse. You have a comparative structure and you have an implied comparison. Now let us understand the structure of the word worst. Superlative structure, I already told you. Subject plus verb plus the worst. Now this is something you need to remember, guys. You use the article the when you use the word worst and the superlative reference point of comparison. Let's take an example. It was the worst date I've ever had, right? It is the subject. You have the verb was. Then you have these two words, the worst. And then you have the superlative reference point, date I've ever had in years, right? So that is the subject. That is a superlative structure. She is the worst driver in the family. Again, we are following the structure, right? And we have an implicit superlative structure in that it is subject plus verb plus the worst. You will use the word the out here with the implied superlative reference point. You are the worst. There could be other members. There are many members in the family perhaps, or there are other members in the group, but you are the worst, right? Let's now end this particular video with a quiz. So I'm going to give you about 10 questions. Ready? I would request you to get a pen and paper ready. And let's understand how much you've understood, whether you've got the concept correct or not. So first one, this is the dash coffee I've ever tasted. Worse or worst? 2. My cold seems to be getting dash as the day goes on. 3. Of all the books I've read, that was the dash. This has been the dash vacation ever. 5th, the movie sequel was dash than the original. 6th, her mood became dash after hearing the news. 7th, of all the hairstyles she has had, this is the dash. The traffic today is even dash than yesterday. Number 9, that was the dash decision I've ever made. Number 10, this hotel is the dash. Now friends, what I would request you is to please pause this video for some time. Maybe pause it for about whatever time you want. Write down your answers in a pen and paper. I'm going to take a pause for about 6 to 8 seconds myself. Please pause the video out here, write down the answers, and then we'll compare the answers. I'm going to pause for about 5 seconds and come back. Okay friends, welcome back. I assume that you had paused the video and you've written down the answers. Now, let us compare the answers. First one, this is the worst coffee I've ever tasted, which means that he's had coffee earlier. This is the worst one. My cold seems to be getting worse as the day goes on. Worse. Number 3, of all the books I've read, that was the worst. Number 4, this has been the dash vacation ever, worst vacation ever. Number 5, the movie sequel was worse than the original. Number 6, her mood became dash after hearing the news, worse after hearing the news. We are comparing two situations out here. Number 7, of all the hairstyles she has had, this is the worst. Number 8, the traffic today is even worse than yesterday. Number 9, that was a dash decision I've ever made, worst decision I've ever made. And number 10, this hotel is the worst. So friends, how many did you get right? Please put in the comments below. And if you have liked my video, if you have learned something new today, please give me a like. I will be more than happy to make videos like this and help you on your English language journey. Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next one.